Hey everyone, in this video I'm doing some coaching with the Gladiator Beast deck you saw on my last upload, since a lot of you asked for it. We'll go over side deck choices, what to take out and put in depending on the matchup. Then I'll walk you through 2 full matches, explaining every decision and move to help you really understand the strategy behind each play. Before we jump into the video, I wanted to quickly mention something. A few of you have asked if I could do private coaching. I've been thinking about how to make it really useful, and I believe the best way is through videos, just like the ones I post here. I used to do live coaching years ago, but this format works better. You send me 10 replays from 10 matches, I watch them all, pick 3, and create a full coaching video where I go over your plays in detail. For the other 7, you'll still get written feedback with tips and areas to improve. That way, you get something clear, structured, and easy to rewatch whenever you want. More info in the video description. In this video, we'll be using the Gladiator Beast deck again. After my last upload, some of you told me you tried it and you're really enjoying it. One of you even messaged me saying you're 9 wins and 0 losses with it, which is amazing. I haven't had much time to play, but I did a couple of matches and won them too, so right now we're on a 13 win streak. The deck still feels great, and I still believe the control version of Gladiator Beast is the most stable and consistent. Let's take a look at the list. Here's the deck list. It's the same as the one from the last video. If you haven't seen it yet, feel free to pause and take a closer look. So far, I'm really liking this list. Someone asked me why I'm playing 2 Retiari, and I explained it's simply to have 1 more Gladiator Beast in the main deck. It's important to see at least 1 in your opening hand, and drawing it in the mid game can really matter. Among the options, Retiari still feels like the most solid choice. Also to avoid situations where it gets removed by something like Dimensional Prison and you're left without it for the rest of the match. Now let's take a look at how I side. What comes in, what goes out for each matchup. And just like I said last time, don't overside. You don't want to lose consistency. Here's what I side in and out for each matchup. Cards marked with a green icon are what I bring in, red means I take them out, and yellow are the cards I sometimes side. It depends on whether I'm going first or second. Feel free to pause the video and take a closer look. Take these side deck choices as a general guideline. I often side by feel. In some matchups you might notice I'm siding in more cards than I take out. That's fine, I adjust depending on the situation. For example, if I'm not going first, sometimes I take out 1 or even 2 Starlight Roads, sometimes a Waboku. Ancient Forest is another one. If I feel like it's good in the matchup, I'll side it in, otherwise not. Same goes for how many Smashing Grounds to side. Another case, if you lose Game 2 to Royal Oppression against Lightshorn, you might want to side in a Dust Tornado for Game 3. So yeah, use this as a reference, then tweak based on your reads and what you're up against. Alright, now let's break down 2 of the most recent matches I played. I'll walk you through my plays, give coaching on the decisions I made, and explain the reasoning behind each move. Right now, I'm ranked number 2 on the ladder, so let's see how we got there. This kind of opening can go in a few different directions. You can summon Retiari and bluff Chariot while setting Waboku, or go for a Laquari. In general, when I have Waboku in hand, I try not to risk getting hit by Heavy Storm on turn 1 by setting more than 1 card. Unless my hand is really solid with cards like Starlight Road or Solemn, I don't like revealing my deck too early, especially with Gladiator Beast, since opponents tend to play very differently once they know what you're on. In this case, I decided to set Retiari and Waboku. There are pros and cons. The upside is that my opponent doesn't know what I'm playing, so they might open more passively. Plus with Waboku, I can protect Retiari and use Proving Ground next turn to search Bestiari. The risk, and it's exactly what happens here, is that the opponent assumes it's something like Raikou, attacks into it with a floater monster like Trooper, and I'm forced to use a pretty underwhelming Waboku. If he had summoned something like Vayu or Plague Spreader Zombie instead, the turn would have gone a lot more in our favor. Here we had the option to set either book or compulsory. I went with compulsory because we knew the opponent had added Armageddon Knight, so I wanted to play around a potential Goyo. Bouncing it would have been a great outcome. I also had a feeling they might have Heavy Storm, so I didn't want to set 2 cards. Book could have been fine too, but I saw it more as a way to play around brain control. Worst case scenario, they summoned Sirocco, since they couldn't drop Caius without anything on board. Honestly, I don't think there's a clear right or wrong move here. The opponent ended up summoning Chaos Sorcerer, and that's just not something you can easily play around. Looking back, yeah, Book probably would have been better in this exact spot, but it's easy to say that in hindsight. I usually hate doing blind MST, but honestly, the only bad hit here would have been Mystical Space Typhoon, and if he had it, he probably would have used it the turn before. Now, here he makes a bit of a mistake by removing the bigger monster from the field, but I can't really blame him. One of the strengths of our version is that we don't play Test Tiger, so he likely made that call thinking we were on the more typical GB list. In the end, it worked out perfectly for us. Not only did MST go through, giving us a +1, but we also cleared the one monster that was giving us trouble. Here I tagged into Hoplimus, mainly because having a monster that can sit over Armored Wing is really strong in this matchup, and my plan was to hold on to the Geyser's play with Proving Ground in hand. I'll admit, I was probably a bit greedy here. I had 2 options, either set both cards and try to push for the win, or hold Proving Ground and Book as a backup in case things went wrong, even though that would have been a pretty weak restart. As I mentioned earlier, I was still kind of feeling like Heavy Storm might be coming, but after seeing Chaos Sorcerer and the set DDV, I figured he probably didn't have it yet, or he would have used it. Honestly, there's no strictly right or wrong play here. Sometimes you risk getting hit by Storm and it pays off, sometimes you get punished and it's just part of the game. Even though at this point the game's looking pretty rough, there's a small thing I want to point out. When you're playing Gladiator Beast, and your opponent summons Goyo, if they attack your monster, and this depends on your hand of course, it's often better to let them take it directly, instead of sending it to the graveyard. Taking control with Goyo is kind of automatic for most players, but in this matchup that can actually be a misplay. By giving them the monster, next turn we might have something in defense to swing into, which lets us trigger a Gladiator Beast. If it had gone to the grave, they might have had that extra moment to think about it and realize the risk. But when you just pass it to them, they often don't overthink it, and that might give you an extra chance to come back. In this spot, if I had drawn a Gladiator beast that wasn't Murmillo, I probably wouldn't have summoned it. I'm of the mindset that sometimes, if you're down a game, it's okay to take some risks in game 2. Seeing my opponent go for Grepher discard Sirocco under Chariot made me think he might have Dark Arm Dragon in hand, and he was just trying to load up the grave as fast as possible. If he had Heavy Storm, I feel like he would have used it, especially with 5 sets. At that point, I figured getting Chariot from grave was too important. If he had hit me with Torrential or Mirror, I probably would have Solemned it, even knowing I could get punished by Storm on the next turn. That's the kind of spot where you take the risk. The other option was using Compulsory on one of the monsters, but honestly, going 1 for 2 like that felt a bit too costly. So yeah, in this situation, I decided to take the gamble and play through it. In situations like this, when you only have one monster, I usually don't like setting just one back row, mainly because if you don't draw another monster for a few turns, it can snowball pretty fast. But here, my opponent set nothing, and honestly, throughout the whole match, he always seemed to have Heavy Storm. Now, I'm not the kind of player who lets that get in my head too much, but I just didn't feel like losing straight up to Storm, so I decided to set Chariot. With a monster already on board, it kind of feels mandatory anyway. Plus, it's a good answer to something like Caius, and overall, it felt like the best trap to set in that moment. Here, unfortunately, we didn't draw a monster, and I wasn't sure what the best move was. One option was to set Mirror Force to protect myself from a potential push, but it would have been a pretty mediocre mirror, and once you flip it, you lose the advantage of having it set. Your opponent just starts playing completely differently after that. Another option was using Smashing Ground on the Armageddon Knight, but with 4,700 life points, I felt like I still had room to try and buy a turn and play for value. So I decided to just set Prison, hoping to hit the Trooper with it and maybe draw a monster next turn. Here I decided to use Smashing Ground instead of Shrink. In general, smashing is a more passive card. And especially when you're behind on life points, I prefer having something I can use on the opponent's turn as well. Here I went for a quested because going for value is always good, and having a monster in hand right now is essential. I can't risk losing my monster and then having the hope I top deck one. The opponent's set card is starting to look pretty suspicious. Overall, in this kind of situation, having another monster in hand, especially with the possibility of restarting with Shrink, is really important. Here, of course, we're not summoning Laquari. The fact that he added Armageddon instead of Dark Grepher makes us suspect he might have set Torrential. And honestly, we're fine with that. In the end, his set card was a bottomless. Probably my opponent was waiting for us to summon Bestiari. Here, Shrink really shines. It's like we're playing a card that doesn't even exist yet. Forbidden Lance. Protecting our monster this turn is absolutely crucial. Here, I was pretty torn. I could have added Bestiari and played Geyserus. I thought about it because, like I said before, I suspected my opponent might have Torrential. But the fact that they didn't chain it to Shrink felt a bit off, so maybe it wasn't Torrential. Because in that spot, I think they definitely should have chained it, especially seizing Shrink to protect our monster. Another thought I had was it could have been a second bottomless. In the end, I decided to play it safe and just attack. Here, I really started feeling in control of the match. I chose to go for Red Iari to take away his Chaos Sorcerer option. Another choice could have been Bestiari, but like I said before, I wanted to play around bottomless. With so many cards set and Solemn, I aimed to cut off as many of his options as possible, hoping he'd activate Torrential in the spot we expected. From this point on, having another monster in hand made me feel pretty confident about winning the match. This is the real strength of the deck, always keeping Bestiari in the deck, and being able to add it with Proving Ground, so you can consistently make Geyserus. Unlike versions like Prisma or Test Tiger, where you often end up with Bestiari stuck in the graveyard, and your only way to get it back is by attacking and hoping to trigger a Darius. Luckily for us, both Mirror and Torrential are gone. So we're free to play super aggressively, and with Solemn set, we can try win the whole match. Here I actually thought about it because my only fear was that the other set card could be Solemn Judgment, which would have been annoying to lose my Solemn for just a Necro activation. But then I figured, if they activated Burial, they must be pretty desperate. After doing some thoughts, I decided it was worth trying to close out the game right away rather than playing around that one potential Solemn set. Even if it was Solemn, we'd still be in a good position overall. This was a unique match because I actually took some risks. What I always tell people is that good gameplay requires flexibility. You can't just follow rules you learned in the past without thinking. Years ago, I knew a player who based every move on lessons learned, like never attack with 2 monsters because of mirror force. But the game doesn't work like that. Sometimes the only way to win is to take that risk, even if it goes against what should be correct. There are games where you play it safe, and games where you have to bet everything. The key is to stay adaptable and read the moment, not just the theory. I know I said at the beginning that I'd go over 2 matches, but I didn't expect this one to take so much time, and I don't want to end up with a 1-hour video. If you enjoy this kind of content, it really helps me out if you drop a like and subscribe. I genuinely appreciate it. And like I mentioned at the start, if you're interested in private coaching, check out the video description for more info. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.